Wow. You guys are sexy. No, seriously, look around. Sexy to your left. Sexy to your right. Where'd Dr. Miro go? Sexy. But before I make you any more uncomfortable than you probably already are, and I am, I need you to know that you're not unique. You're not unique in so much that you have limitations. And whether or not I can see them from here, don't worry, I'm not looking. You have them. How you are crazy, sexy, unique is in the way that you rise or trek out of those limitations. For humans, in fact, limitations are the great equalizer since we all have them. Yet we have a really difficult time connecting that of substance use disorders, or what some people call addiction, to a limitation, and how alike we actually all are in these said limitations, when all limitation is something you didn't ask for, right? And depending upon your perspective, it was either given to you or granted to you, happened to or for you, and could potentially limit your life in some way. I call this our from. And again, we all have one. So as it relates to substance use disorders and people's subsequent recovery, many people say, I am in recovery from fill in the blank. I contend, though, that a recovery from perspective is so much more than just a way that we describe our disorder. So what is this recovery from paradigm I speak of? It's when you, whether you claim to be in recovery or not, or have a substance use disorder or not, tend to live your life in a manner in which you wave a white flag of surrender. And why do we wave that white flag? We wave that white flag for things that we can't control. There's nothing I can do about it, I'm throwing in the towel. We also wave that white flag for things like pain, when the pain becomes great enough, for fear, hopelessness, helplessness. Well, in recovery from living, we're told what our problem is, and then we're told what our solution is. And we listen, because we feel like we don't have any choices. In addition, if we're living in recovery from, we have a great tendency to focus on the limitation itself. We focus on the problem. What is wrong with me? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with them? What is wrong with us? And then we take that limitation and we blanket it over every area of our lives, whether or not it applies. And we do this with substance use disorders all the time. Well, he's an addict, so he lacks discipline, or he's dishonest. Or I'm a recovering alcoholic, so I have a thinking problem. I'm selfish, I'm self-centered, right? If we're living in recovery from, we are looking to the past all the time for opportunities to be different. And many of us say this all the time. What did I do? Why did I do it? What should I have done differently? And that past of ours is consistently limiting us and defining us, and we feel less than or not good enough, or clearly we couldn't do something based on our past or based on our limitation. If we're living in recovery from, many of us are walking around, we're quietly hiding our limitations, as if nothing has ever happened, as if you've never struggled or currently struggle with anything in your life. We also tend to live in this either-or mentality, the edges, the extremes, the cliffs, all or nothing. In recovery from, we feel very separate from the rest of the world. Now, we may not feel unique or different from people like us, people that share our same from, but it is clear in our words and actions that we do feel very unique, different, or separate from the rest of the world. And finally, in recovery from, we live extremely defensively. And what do I mean by that? I mean that we make choices from a place of moving away from a negative. So whoever we thought we were, whatever the consequences were, that's the place we're making choices from. Oh, I don't want to be that guy anymore. Oh, I don't want that bad thing to happen anymore. Or we have a tendency to fight things all the time or protect things, right? And many of us think that it's living offensively because we're fighting, right? But anytime we make a decision from a place of fear, it's actually a really defensive approach. So this lens of living and being, though, makes perfect sense, right? When this is all we read. or hear or see. Turn on the news, hit up your favorite news website, open a newspaper, or just click on cable. You'll see the drama of addiction unfold and the monstrous effects it has on community and family and society. And sadly, many of us carry this lens of ourselves into our recovery as well. Drug addiction is voluntary behavior, right? So, what if we shifted and created a different way to view, talk about, and live our lives? I call this Recovery 2. What if we waved an orange flag of surrender? Or it looks pretty yellow up there, but yellow-orange. Your life and your recovery, it's not just about surrendering to pain and fear and things you can't control. It's also about surrendering, or what I prefer to say, trekking into what already exists for you as well. Things like joy, connection, community, purpose, and sexy. In Recovery 2, we don't forget our from, we reconcile our from. We actually begin to see opportunity in where we have been and what we have done in our story. In Recovery 2, we're starting to have a tremendous focus on what's right with us. We're starting to believe that we have everything that we need, and the questions we're asking now are, what gets me up in the morning? What excites me and why? What inspires me? What's working? In Recovery 2, we're making choices from our core, and I'm talking like a ripped, six-pack, reconciled, sturdy core. Nobody gets to decide for us any longer. We're deciding for ourselves. And we're looking for the opportunities to be who we are and who we want to be in the right now. We're not looking to the past anymore. In Recovery 2, we are living the beauty and gray. And is my favorite word. It is all possible and it can all coexist. We're starting to have a deep and profound inner knowing that we are like everyone else in the fact that we have limitations. And also crazy, sexy, unique in the way that we have opportunities to rise out of those limitations. I saw that coming. In Recovery 2, we're living offensively. And what do I mean by that? We are rocking it out from core to world. We don't need to protect what matters. We can literally just live what matters, which actually has a sustainable effect on the world. Never underestimate your being on blast. And finally, in Recovery 2, we're living both sides of humility. You know, we have a great tendency to focus on that side of humility in our society, and particularly in recovery, that focuses on remaining teachable, asking for help when you need it, never walking around thinking you're better than anyone else. Yes. And on the flip side, we're not any worse. In fact, we're all equally equipped in different ways. So in Recovery 2, we're owning that other side of humility, and we are rocking out what we've been granted, and then we're going to serve like we have never heard of doubt. It is just as much our responsibility to fully fill in our piece to the puzzle. Orange is the new white. So, it makes sense that people with substance use disorders have a difficult time connecting their limitations with everyone else's limitation because we only focus on the from, the details of being different. Here are the things we hear. She is not ready. He will never get it. Or even better, we ask questions like, are you sure she really wants it? Or how long has he been coming in and out of rehab? And some people with substance use disorders do the same things, or people in recovery, we separate ourselves by saying those things like, well, I'm a recovering drug addict, so I lack discipline, I'm dishonest, I'm selfish, I'm self-centered, and we call ourselves and other people names. And even though we are all in recovery from something, a limitation of some kind, the stuff that we carry that could potentially limit us in our lives, we choose to go on acting as if people with substance use disorders are not recoverable, or that they will be fighting something every day for the rest of their lives. Are we asking, does she really want it? Or is she really worth it? Am I asking, can I really be free? Or am I worth being totally free? I wonder sometimes. And we need to all ponder on what our words and actions are messaging to the many people in our lives as well as to ourselves and our entire community. It is a fact that 2 out of 3 of you in this room will be touched by substance use disorders at any given moment in time in your life. So we know what people are in recovery from, but do we ever know what they're in recovery to? How many people do you think are in long-term recovery in this country? 24 million. What do you think the likelihood is of people staying in long-term recovery? Well, if people achieve 5 years of abstinence, they have an 80 to 90% chance of remaining substance-free the rest of their lives. We don't hear about these numbers. No, we're focusing on the from. So what if we shifted our lens a bit? And I'm just going to give you a couple examples. And the first one is of a word. It's used quite often in the medical community. It's used with many diseases, and it's being used more and more as it relates to people in recovery and people with substance use disorders. Remission. And the definition of remission is a decrease and or disappearance of signs and symptoms, even though the disease can still be going on in the body. Though a beautiful, miraculous, and marvelous thing to have a decrease and or disappearance of signs and symptoms, if this is the place that I'm making choices from, it still focuses on that of the from, on looking backwards, on the disease and on the symptoms. And there is limited inspiration from this place. So how would I live my life, which is a little bit different way of looking at the same letters? Regarding the mission. What if I got up every day and made choices from this place? What we think, say, and feel about ourselves, to ourselves, as well as then what we are saying to others is creating us in every moment. This is our too, both individually and as an entire community. Or let's take another example, one that many of you may be familiar with if you're Starbucks folks. And this is their barista promise. And it says, love your beverage, or let us know. We'll always make it right. Nothing wrong with this statement. Howard Schultz is a pretty brilliant guy. It certainly is a recovery from perspective. It leaves the door wide open for you to not really love your beverage and then for you to let them know. So what would happen if I just changed one word? Love your beverage and let us know. We'll always make it right. How do you think the baristas would feel about having this sign up every day? What do you think it would do to their swag, their walk, their talk, and from what place is driving their every movement? So there's something I really want to share with you guys. When I tell people that I'm a person in long-term recovery from substance use disorders, and for me, what that means is that drugs or alcohol no longer limits my life in any way for the last 8.5 years, one of 3 things is said to me every single time, and I'm going to share that with you. You don't look like an addict. Thanks. I wore my good clothes. Is me drinking this right now going to bother you? Drink away. Do it responsibly. Bernadette, you would have been fun to party with. No matter how old I get, I think I'm always going to have party written on my forehead. Let me tell you a little bit about my from. I sat at a bar at 21 years old. I said I don't drink. Someone ordered me a drink, and I drank it. Regardless of my upbringing, my values, my principles, or beliefs, drugs and alcohol then became the only way that I felt connected to anything for the next 7 years. When I got naked in 2006, take that any way that you want. After many, many, many tries to remain substance-free, I was connected with people that had my same from, finally. Now, you may or may not connect to my from, which includes lying, cheating, stealing, not following through, doing anything to get what I wanted, sustaining serious trauma, and putting myself in situations that no human should put themselves in. Ever. You may or may not connect and or admit to feeling totally crazy, totally lost, and totally alone, stuck in your life and choices with no semblance of a belief that you could ever do it differently. You may or may not connect to feeling like you have a limitation that completely controls you, having limited options, and tremendous amounts of shame and guilt for things that you have done and innately who you think that you are, and fighting something all of the time. Even into my first few years in recovery, I felt as though I had to fight this addiction thing. What I did not realize at the time, but I realized soon thereafter, is that I was making decisions from a place of who I don't want to be and from fear. And I was listening to all that the oral history and the messaging that told me that I had to fear it and that I had to fear myself. You see, even though my from connected me to a recovery community, it was paramount, and here's where the big deal is. It was paramount that a transformation occurred within me so that I believed finally that I was no longer different. And that, yes, I had a serious limitation, but that it no longer needed to limit me in any way. And once I finally believed that I was no longer unique from any of you in the fact that I had limitations, it became my opportunity to connect to the rest of the world. And that's all I've really ever wanted, is to feel connected and right in the world. This then opened the door to what I was in recovery to in my life. So let me tell you a little bit about my two. My two is about believing that I have everything that I need and that no one or nothing screwed up on me. Finally. My two is about redefining everything, and that's what we're talking about today, right? Redefining everything and anything that enters my cosmos so that it allows me to be a life acrobat, to walk from my highest point to true freedom. My two is about rocking it out from core to world. It's about fully filling in my piece to the puzzle. My two is about basking in the beauty and gray. I am all of it. I am not just my limitations. I am not just my sexy uniqueness. No, really, I'm not just my sexy uniqueness. I am not just my body, my mind, or my emotions. I am all of it, and I get to be all of it today. And I not only get to normalize that for all of you, but also for myself. And finally, my two is about getting up every day and giving whatever the hell I want to the world, the way I want, how I want, with who I want. And then I get to be a liberating force in other people's lives for them to get up and do the same damn thing. And I need you to know how all of this feels. Thanks. I'm trying to get on Ellen. I'm just kidding. So if we say we really want to shift, we have to acknowledge the hell before we can swallow the hope, though we can't live in the hell. What we are in recovery to is happening and necessary and remarkable. How is it possible to have the right answers but not to be asking the right questions? Let's get into a few of those right answers through the right questions. No longer are we asking, does she really want it or can he really get it? We are now asking, what can we all do to provide an environment for people to recover to something? So what can you do? Well, on a micro scale and in your everyday lives, give people a safe space. Give your child, family member, loved one, friend, employee a safe space to come and talk to you. And please allow them to be fully human. Live the beauty and gray with them. And when they come and talk to you, please listen and acknowledge what they're thinking and feeling as real. There is nothing worse than feeling totally crazy and totally alone. And regardless of their age, help them acknowledge that things may happen to them in life whenever they start to figure that out, and that they didn't ask for it, and it's not their fault. Don't hesitate to talk to them about limitations and that we all have one, and that they may have one if they say that they do. But there are many, many solutions. And when they're ready, share with them their great gifts and the opportunities from possibilities, the limitations, to build community and hope and inspiration, and for them to give exactly what they were meant to the world. On a macro scale, community to country level, we have to listen to the 24 million voices. Community, connection. Addiction breeds in isolation. The hallmark of all successful recovery journeys is community and connection. We have to have viable, fulfilling, and creative opportunities for these. We need assertive linkage of services. We need to trek each part of the terrain with them from 0 to 5 years while encouraging and supporting a transformation into a Recovery 2 paradigm at all stages of recovery. We got to call them. We got to reach out, text them, IM, tweet, do whatever you do. Ask them how they're doing. Cardiologists, hey cardiology people, cardiologists, dentists, oncologists, pediatrics offices call their patients more than we call people in early recovery. We need to fill in the gaps and close the loopholes. We got to partner together. Here we go again. This is going to be great on tape. Just take your time here, B. We need an open arms approach, a choice approach. There are multiple pathways to and in recovery. There are 24 million answers. There's an 80 to 90% chance of remaining substance-free after 5 years. We can reconcile our from, and we can begin to live offensively in our to. This is regarding the mission. This is trekking the beautiful terrain into limitless recovery. This is sexy. You should have a puzzle piece on the table. I'm going to ask you to be vulnerable, grab it now, and hold it up with me. It would help if I had one, but it's cool. We can pretend. I want you to look around at all this sexy. Look around. 2 out of 3 of you will be touched by this. We need each other. Your piece to the puzzle is as important as mine for the core strengthening of our entire community. Let's do this damn thing together. Thanks.